This week we're going to be looking at Mars in particular. Before we jump into that, though, I want to see, at least from the Skype group, if there are any questions. So do you have any questions based on what we went over last week or the week before with Sun and Moon?
I was just wondering about that one conversation, that one conversation that we had about the moon waning and waxing, and how you had written an email that said you kind of misinterpreted the question. And so I was just wanting to get a little clarification on that. What you were saying about it on the Skype group last week was that the waning moon, if it's stronger, meaning it's about 8 houses away from the sun, that would give it more strength to be malefic than if it was 12 houses away from the sun.
Right.
Or is it kind of the other way around? Is it that a 12 house away from the sun is a more malefic moon because it's so dark?
Okay, yeah, so anyway, it definitely got mixed up a little bit last week. First of all, when it comes to the moon, when it is full or near full, even in the 6th, probably even the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, and even 9th house from the sun, for the purpose of using that as a secondary ascendant, meaning looking at the moon as a secondary ascendant if you don't have a proper birth time, that's fine and that's good. All right, so yes, I got turned around because with the moon, when it's waning, this brings in the whole idea of the Ishta and Kashta. And so when a planet has high Ishta, that means it's got good things to give. When a planet has high Kashta, that means it has negative things to give. Now, this is where it gets kind of tricky, at least in my mind, and where I got off a little bit. So first of all, typically, when a planet is a benefic planet, for example, Jupiter, Venus, Mercury by himself, waxing moon, a benefic planet, they will give away their Ishta, which means they'll give away their good stuff, their good influences, their good karma, and whatever negative karma they have or negative power they have, I guess you could say, to produce things, they keep that. So the good planets give away their good stuff and they keep their bad stuff for themselves. And what does that mean? That means basically that, let's just say we've got Venus. Venus is a benefic planet, always will be, gentle planet, Salmia planet. And even if, so the point system goes up to 60. So for example, if Venus has 20 points of Ishta, which is 20 good points, it will have 40 points of Kashta, which are the bad points. And so what that means is that those 20 points of power, it will give way to support its friends or to support its things that it's helping. But the negative aspect, it will keep for itself, meaning that Venus will be the one that suffers because of that, not other planets. However, when it comes to a malefic planet keeps for itself the Ishta, the good stuff, and it gives away its bad Kashta. And what that means is, let's say that Saturn has a Kashta of 15 points, which are the negative capacity, 15 out of 60, which will also mean that Saturn has an Ishta, or good points, of 45. Now, since Saturn is a malefic planet, that means that Saturn will keep that 45 points of good things that promotes its longevity, that supports the immune system, that makes it nice and strong, and it will it will give away its negative, which means those 15 points of negative it will share with the people that it's influencing. So the Ishta and Kashta, this is kind of a complicated calculation, but it works very well to figure out what the planets are going to do and how they're going to do it. And if you want a good book to read on that, hold on a moment, let me go find that, because it kind of explains all this. Give me one moment, I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. Thanks for that. A good book on this is called Predictive Method, Predicting with Grahas as Karakas, and this is by Laura Barat. Laura, Laura, and then her last name is Barat. So that will give you how these are calculated. If you have Kala, it already calculates it for you if you go to the Ishta and Kashta in the screens menu. But now what does this have to do with the moon? Well, when the moon is going towards full, and also going towards its exaltation sign, because that's how we figure out this Ishta and Kashta, the combination between full moon and going towards its exaltation sign, it will have a higher Ishta, a higher good points. Now, as it starts to, as it gets into, say, the 8th house from the sun, now it's a waning moon, which means before it was benefic, now it is waning. And so as the more it wanes, the closer it gets to the sun, the higher its Kashta goes up, which means the more of a malefic planet it actually becomes. And again, this is why I got a little turned around, because the whole Ishta and Kashta comes into play there. So keep in mind that when the moon is waning, as soon as it starts to wane, which means just after it gets past that degree of the sun, opposite the sun, it's waning, it automatically becomes malefic. However, its Ishta is probably decently high, and its Kashta will be around average as well. But the more it moves towards the sun, its Kashta goes up, which means it's still malefic, but now it's going to give more and more malefic because its Kashta is going up, which is the indicator of whether it's going to give malefic things. All right. So does that help at all? I know that's a little bit complicated, but does that answer your question at all?
Yeah, it definitely does, and I'm excited to get more into this too. Thanks for the book.
Yeah, it's a really good book because she gives, a lot of books, they just give you stuff, but her book really gives examples for each of the things, so you really see how it works, and it also goes into the conditional dashas, the other dasha systems. So, for example, Vimshottari is a good one, but there are other dashas that are applicable to charts too, and we have to use those if we can. So she goes into figuring out when those are appropriate for a particular chart, because they're not appropriate for everyone. So yeah, check that out. And the moon, it's malefic when it's waning. And the thing that you have to remember, this is the other important part about the moon, or any kind of planet. A planet, whether we say malefic or benefic, that just shows how the planet's going to act. For example, Jupiter is a benefic, which means he's happy to give you things. He wants you to have everything that you want when he's happy, when he's well dignified. So things are easy with Jupiter. Saturn and Mars, even though they're malefic, if they're in good dignity, they'll still give you things. They're just going to make you work hard for it. So they still give, they just make you work hard. Now, it's when a planet goes into its negative dignities, like debilitation or great enemy sign, that we start to see even a benefic planet becomes bad, because it's the dignities that indicates the type of karma. And so, for example, with Venus, or let's just stick with Jupiter. With Jupiter, when Jupiter's dignity is bad, he still will try to help, but the problem is he doesn't really know how to help. So he's the kind of help that's given to you that doesn't really make sense based on the situation. So it's not timely help, or it's not appropriate help. So that's sort of bad karma, even though he's still a nice planet. He's still trying, but it botches things up. When Saturn is malefic, well, he's really going to hurt you. There's no hanging back from that. First of all, he's cruel. When he's good dignified, he gives the good things of Saturn through hard work. When he's bad dignified, he just ends up hurting you, because he's a cruel planet, and it works that way with all cruel and benefic planets. Now again, the other thing that you have to keep in mind as well with the cruel and benefic and the karma is that one of the other avashtas that we use, which I'm just going to have to do a video on this because it's fairly simple, so it doesn't really take a whole course, but the Bilotti of Ashtas. And again, that's when a planet, you can Google that, or I'll try to write it up for you and send it to you, but Bilotti of Ashtas are like the infant state, the adolescent state, the youthful state, the old state, and the dead state. And that's dependent on the degree that it's in the sign. And so anytime a planet's in, 12 to 18 degrees, it's in an adult state no matter what, which means that a planet in 12 to 18 degrees is going to have the full impact of what it indicates. If it's a planet in bad dignity, it will show that the full effects of that karma, that bad karma, will be felt because it's in an adult state. If it's in an infant state, which only gives, I think, 25% of its karma, then you could have a really terrible Saturn and Mars. But if that planet is in an infant state, then what that shows is that that's a bad karma that's developing, so it doesn't have full force to just ruin you. So if you can get a handle on that, you can change it.